Okay, so tell us a little bit about your background.
My background. I'm an endodontist by profession, and my background is that I grew up in a family that was, my father was an attorney, and our family was involved in real estate in Detroit. And I, as a kid, earned my allowance as a bookkeeper. Then when I was in college, even though I was going to dental school, I minored in accounting. So my business background was far different than most professionals. And I continued working as a corporate accountant for our family for years, and then went into practice. And when I finished my residency, I went down to South Florida and lived there for 40 years, where I still live part-time, and then during the summers we live up in Massachusetts. As far as Hurricane, to answer the other question you were interested in, I'm always looking for investments and have been involved in a lot of different things, from stocks, bonds, the traditional things, to real estate, and then some bizarre things, product design and entrepreneurial ventures that I've gotten involved with, friends of mine within my profession and without. I've designed some things for the surgical microscope and so on and so forth. Gail, on the other hand, we've been married for 12 years, and she invests separately than I, and we compare and contrast what we do. And then when John and Gail came up with this idea, or the idea was brought to them, or the opportunity to invest in Hurricane, John said, "Come on, let's go see what it's all about." And we went and we had, I don't know if you call it lunch, we sat and I had wings for the very first time, truly. And I said, well, it's not bad. It was a small little restaurant, which is no longer in existence. I think there were like 40 seats. And we talked about it for the next week or two, and Gail said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, what are we looking for? She says, well, we're talking about buying the brand, and we will become Hurricane and do something with it. And I said, well, it's interesting, and Gail and I actually have invested together in a few things. We try to keep our lives financially separate, but on the other hand, there are things that we do together. And I thought about it, and I said, look, we want this to be a long-term marriage, right? If we want it to be a long-term marriage, and this is going to be something that we're going to put our whole heart and soul into, or you are anyway, in order for me to listen to this every single day, if I'm not involved, this ain't going to happen. So I said, okay, I got to have a piece of the action. So Gail and I said, all right, we talked about it, and that's how John, Gail, and I started with our investment in Hurricane. And then we had a fourth partner who we bought out, so it became us. And as far as the brand is concerned, at first I was a little skeptical, as we all are. And you have to be somewhat optimistic to go into things, but on the other hand, be skeptical so you're not taken advantage of. And long term, I said, well, you know, it's just another investment. We'll put a couple $100,000 into it, and it'll be great and terrific and all that. And if we get a return, we get a return. And if we don't, we don't. You know, you always anticipate great things at the beginning, and it doesn't always work out that way. However, as time progressed and more money was needed, we got together, and I didn't really think I'd spend much time involved in Hurricane. And as the years have progressed, and certainly once we bought out our partners, I became much more involved. And this actually is the first conference that I've gone to, and I'm totally impressed. And I've always heard the stories and about, you know, we're different than everybody else. And why are we different than everybody else? Because restaurants are a dime a dozen. And the thought and theory that I was always fed, if you will, and I truly believe it now, is that because John and Gail were on the other side of the coin, and I saw how they struggled as franchisees, and the idea that John always proposed to us was that we're going to run this company from the top, but with the idea in mind that the franchisees are going to be the people that we're looking out for. We're looking out for the little guy, and everything we do will be towards that end. We're not going to screw the franchisee as most big companies do, no matter how big we get or whatever we do. And with that theory in mind, we're going to be different because there aren't that many companies, I'm sure there are some, that run that way. And I am thoroughly convinced after watching what's gone on here in the last 2 days, and I've been taking notes and saying, I'd actually like to get up and say something and say to the effect, I certainly hope that you as franchisees appreciate the fact now, from what you've seen, that all of the things that we have proposed and shown over the weekend, from financing to security to POS to PR, the corporation or corporate has been working on your behalf. Sure, we get a trickle-down effect at the end, but bottom line, we spend a lot more time and money and effort in trying to make your ROI at the best that's possible, and we are working for you. And I can tell you that it's been 4 years and we're still paying the bills. We have not taken a dime out. We are still putting money in, and it's because we've overbuilt on the top to enable us to get top quality people, which we really have surrounded ourselves with, to be able to do the things that we want for you. We didn't just hire somebody that it was cheap in marketing or in operations or this or that. We hired top quality people. Now, we were fortunate, and a lot of major companies that have been successful were created during what we would call a perfect storm. And I was with Bernie Marcus the other day, actually a couple weeks ago, and Home Depot made it big. Why did they make it big, and why were they the fastest growing corporation in the history of the world? Because it was a perfect storm. People were buying homes, they were needing supplies, and they came up with a brilliant idea. And I think that we have, in some way, shape, or form, done that here, where we have put together a team which we would never have been able to afford if it had been any other time. But it happened in '08 when we started. And '08, as we all know, was a terrible, terrible time. But the fortunate thing, and the reason that it was a perfect storm, was we had top quality people that would have cost us $250,000, $500,000 in salary to get them away from wherever they were working. But because of poor economic times at that time, these people were looking for a future, and we were able to give them a future at a lower cost to us, but they were smart enough and bright enough to understand where we were going and had enough faith in us to know that they could ride the wave, as our emblem for the weekend is, to something greater and start from the beginning. And that, to be honest with you, is something that anybody that's in business, entrepreneurial or whatever, it's the excitement, they'll tell you it's the excitement of the deal, not necessarily, although that's important to have a good end result, but the excitement of the deal, getting something small and making it grow. And so from people like Martin and Mark and everybody on our executive committee, all the way down, the people that we got was because of this perfect storm. And I think that it's going to, over the long run, prove, as it has to me so far, that it's going to be a winner all the way around.